Today, I wanted to share a story with all of you. And some of you may have received this story, and some of you, this might be the first time that you're hearing this story. This story is called The Story of Numbers. The Story of Numbers. We have been hearing stories of how the universe came to be and how the earth formed and how eventually life came to earth. Eventually, human beings came as part of life and all its experiments. Human beings eventually developed a language to speak and write, and in the same way, human beings needed a special language for their inventions and discoveries, for their measurements. They also needed to know certain information like how far is it to the river? How many caves do we need for our people? How many animals did the hunters bring back? Or when will fruit come back to the trees? Some people had the idea of number 1 and 2, and some people had the idea of 1, 2, 3, and everything else was just many. But there was one group of people in South America, and they didn't have words just for numbers. So for the idea of 1, they used the word alone. And then everything else was considered many. When did numbers first begin? We cannot go far enough to find the beginning of this story because there isn't written record of this time. We do think it's likely that people first used numbers for counting. And one method for counting, which is used by so many people from around the world, is this. Have you ever used your fingers for counting? I want to show you a chart. You can see in this chart that there's one group of people and they actually are using objects. You can see that they're using stones for counting. And some people may have been out on a hunt and they needed a way to record information. So some people may have carried stones and others may have made little notches on a stick. Where did numbers come from? 5,000 years ago, there was a group of people and they were known as the Sumerians. And the Sumerians could read and write, but they also lived in an area where there was so much clay. So the Sumerians made writing tablets from clay and they used a blunt piece of reed, which was called a stylus, and they made marks on those clay tablets. This special writing was known as cuneiform, and this is a Latin word which means wedge. There was also a group of people. They were the Egyptians, and they lived at the same time as the Sumerians. The Egyptians were incredible farmers, and they grew crops and sold crops as well. And they needed a way to write down those big numbers. And so they developed a way to write those numbers. There was another group of people, and they were known as the Babylonians. And the Babylonians created marks with a stick and reed, and you can see how their numbers looked. Do you see how they made the number 23? Do you remember when we talked about the Greeks and how they borrowed symbols from the alphabet and changed them? When they borrowed symbols and changed them, the Greeks did the same with their numbers. And if you can see here, they borrowed the number systems from the Phoenicians, and they made their own symbols. In Greek, the word for 5 is penta. So their symbol was how they wrote 5. And another example was for the word 10, deca. Look at that number on the bottom, 2,857. We also have another group of people here. And these here are the Roman numerals. Not only did the Romans change our letters, but they also changed our numbers a bit. The Romans had 7 symbols to make just about any number. They're called Roman numerals. Look at how in Roman numerals the number 1983. Look at how 1983 is written. There is one number that is pretty much the same for all these groups. And this really did not change much. It's really when we get here that it seems to change a bit. That number 1 is the same, but do you see how 1 is on its side? And if you take a look at their symbols, take a look at 1, 2, and 3. But I want to show you something. 1, 2, and 3. Let's take a look. Here is 1, 2, sorry, let's put it like this. 1, 2, and 3 in Chinese numerals. But take a look. We call our numbers Arabic numerals, but they're not used by Arabic people. We know that the Indian people traded with the Arabic people, and because of this trading, it allowed for this number system to be passed around from one group to the next. Some people think that this should be called the Hindi Arabic numerals. Number systems look very different, and it's not only that when we get to printed books where the numbers look the same. This is the time where the number symbols they became standardized. But we're forgetting one number though, the number 0. The Roman numerals did not have this number, but the Indian number system did. So this meant you could make any number writing 1 through 9 and then placing a 0 in the right place. So we should be thanking someone for giving us such a great system, but we don't actually know who to thank. One of the works that you guys could do as part of your morning math work is you can learn about different number systems. You can write out the Chinese numerals. You can write out the Roman numerals. You can possibly even work on math, addition using Roman numerals, multiplication or division using Roman numerals. So this is a work that you could practice. Perhaps you could also research or learn about number systems in Korea or number systems in Spanish. I hope you enjoy this morning work. Thank you.